He wasn't looking for thanks. Barrett Hale just saw a broken ramp and a man in need, so he fixed it. No money changed hands, no promises made. But by the next morning, the thunder of 40 Harleys rolled down his street, each one carrying a reminder that in the biker world, good deeds never go unanswered. Before we begin, tell us where in the world you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories. The late afternoon sun slanted across the quiet street as Barrett Hale walked home from work, toolbox in hand. He noticed the house 2 doors down. Its porch sat empty, but the wheelchair ramp was sagging, one board split clean through. On the porch, an older man in a leather vest sat in a chair, watching him. Barrett gave a nod. That ramp's safe. The man shook his head. Not for me, it ain't. Barrett didn't know him well, only that his name was Red and he'd been in a bike club years back. Without thinking, Barrett set his toolbox down and started pulling nails. Red watched quietly while Barrett replaced boards, tightened bolts, and added a brace under the frame. When it was done, Red wheeled himself down the ramp, testing it. Feels like new, he said. Barrett just smiled. No charge. Neighbors look out for each other. Barrett didn't linger for thanks. He gathered his tools, gave Red a wave, and headed home to where his daughter, Sophie, was waiting with homework spread across the kitchen table. Life for Barrett was a steady grind. Work, parenting, bills, but fixing the ramp had felt good, like he'd done something that mattered. Sophie asked why he was late, and Barrett told her about Red. Was he nice? She asked. Barrett thought about it. Yeah, quiet, but nice. They ate a simple dinner of pasta and bread, the evening passing like any other. Barrett didn't notice Red watching his porch from across the street, phone in hand. The old biker wasn't the type to ask for help, but Barrett's gesture had stirred something. Before bed, Red made a call to someone he hadn't spoken to in a while. Got a favor to ask, he said, for a man who deserves it. The next morning, Barrett was pouring coffee when he heard it. A deep, rolling thunder that seemed to come from the earth itself. At first, he thought it was a storm, but the sound grew sharper, more mechanical. He stepped onto the porch and froze. 40 motorcycles turned onto his street, engines rumbling in perfect rhythm. Chrome gleamed in the sunlight, and leather vests bore the unmistakable skull and wings patch. At the front of the pack was Red, a broad smile on his weathered face. The riders lined up in front of Barrett's modest home, engines idling. Sophie peeked out from behind him, eyes wide. Barrett felt his pulse quicken, not from fear, but from the sheer force of the moment. Red rolled forward in his chair. Told you the ramp was solid, he called. Now we're here to return the favor. Before Barrett could respond, riders began unloading boxes from saddlebags, groceries, tools, even a brand new winter coat for Sophie. The air filled with the scent of coffee and leather, the hum of quiet conversation. Red wheeled up beside Barrett. You didn't just fix a ramp, he said. You gave me my independence back. That means something in our world. Barrett shook his head. It was nothing. Red's eyes hardened. It was everything. Sophie shyly approached one of the bikers, who knelt to hand her a stuffed bear wearing a tiny leather vest. She clutched it like a treasure. Barrett's throat tightened as he realized this wasn't charity. It was respect, delivered in the only way these men knew how. The porch was filling fast, but the feeling filling Barrett's chest was even greater. The riders didn't just drop things off, they stayed. Some helped Barrett stack firewood. Others checked over his truck, topping off fluids and tightening bolts. Sophie sat with 2 of the women riders, showing them her drawings, their laughter carrying across the yard. Red watched it all from his chair, satisfaction in his eyes. This is what we do, he told Barrett. One good turn earns another. Barrett couldn't remember the last time his yard had been this full, or his heart this light. When the time came for the riders to leave, Engines roared to life once more, the sound like a promise rolling down the road. Red gave Barrett a nod. "We'll see you again." Barrett stood on the porch, Sophie beside him, watching the line of bikes disappear. He didn't know when they'd come back, only that they would. Later that afternoon, Barrett found Red waiting at the end of his driveway. The old biker's leather vest was faded, its patches worn smooth by years of road and weather. "You wondering why we came like that?" Red asked. Barrett shrugged. "Guess I am." Red leaned back in his chair, a faint grin on his face. "I used to ride with them. Back then, we didn't just look after each other, we looked after anyone who stood up when it counted. That ramp might have seemed small to you, but to me it meant I could roll out that door without having to ask for help. That's freedom." Barrett nodded, beginning to understand. "So you called in a favor?" Red chuckled. "I called in a family." Barrett glanced down the empty street where the roar of Harleys had faded. He realized those riders weren't just visitors, they were part of something much larger. That evening, Barrett told Sophie more about Red. She listened intently, chin resting on her hands. "So the ramp was like giving him wings?" she asked. Barrett smiled at the thought. "Yeah, something like that." Sophie tapped her pencil on the table. "And they gave us all that food and fixed the truck because they're his friends?" Barrett nodded. "Friends who don't forget when someone does right by one of their own." Sophie seemed to turn that over in her mind like a puzzle piece finding its place. "Then we have to do something nice for someone else too." Barrett felt a quiet pride. The lesson had landed. As he tucked her in that night, he thought about how small acts could carry farther than you ever expected. Sometimes all the way to 40 riders filling your porch in the morning. 2 days later, Barrett was driving past the grocery store when he saw Red outside, talking with a couple of his old club brothers. They waved Barrett over. One of the riders, a tall man with a gray braid, said, "You're the guy who fixed the ramp?" Barrett nodded, unsure where this was going. The man grinned. "Red told us the story, reminded us of the old days." Another chimed in, "We don't always get to show folks the good side of the patch, but you brought it out." Barrett felt a strange warmth at their words, a mixture of respect and belonging. Before he left, Red wheeled over. "Told you they'd remember," he said. "And now you've got eyes on you, whether you know it or not." Barrett wasn't sure if that was meant as a warning or a comfort, but either way, it stayed with him. That weekend, Barrett worked in his yard, clearing brush from the fence line. A pair of bikes rolled past, their riders giving him a nod before disappearing down the road. He didn't recognize them, but he felt oddly reassured. Later, Red came by with coffee. "Some of the boys have been checking in on you," he said. Barrett laughed. "Didn't realize I needed guarding." Red's eyes twinkled. "It's not about guarding. It's about making sure the people who matter don't fall through the cracks." Barrett thought about that long after Red left. For years, he'd felt like he was doing it all alone. Raising Sophie, keeping the bills paid, holding it together. But now, there was this unseen thread connecting him to a group of people who owed him nothing and yet treated him like one of their own. On Sunday, Barrett and Sophie were baking cookies when there was a knock at the door. Red sat outside with a small package on his lap. "For you," he said. Inside was a leather keychain with the Hell's Angels emblem. Not a patch, but a token. "Means you're a friend," Red explained. Barrett turned it over in his hand, the weight of it more symbolic than physical. Sophie beamed. "Does this mean we're in the club?" Red laughed. "Not exactly, but it means you've got family on the road." Barrett thanked him, feeling the quiet gravity of the gesture. After Red left, Barrett hung the keychain by the door, a small reminder that sometimes helping someone fix a ramp can open a door into a whole new world. One built on loyalty, respect, and the kind of family you don't have to be born into. A week later, Barrett spotted Red at the diner, sitting with 3 other bikers over steaming mugs of coffee. Red waved him over. "Sit," he said, as if Barrett had been part of the crew forever. The men introduced themselves with first names only: Hawk, Diesel, and Slim. Conversation drifted easily from weather to bikes to local gossip. Then Hawk said, "Red tells us you've got a steady hand with tools." Barrett nodded. "I manage." Hawk leaned back. "We're heading over to help a vet fix his porch this weekend. You in?" Barrett hesitated for only a moment before answering. "Yeah, I'm in." Red grinned. "Told you the circle gets bigger." As Barrett left the diner that day, he realized this wasn't about one act of kindness anymore. It was about stepping into a current that carried you toward helping others, whether you'd planned to or not. Saturday came crisp and clear. Barrett loaded his toolbox into his truck and followed the sound of Harleys to a small house on the edge of town. The porch was half collapsed, boards sagging under their own weight. An older veteran in a faded army cap greeted them, shaking each man's hand. Work began without ceremony. Hammers striking nails, saws cutting new boards, conversations flowing as naturally as the tools moved. Barrett found himself paired with Diesel, who showed him tricks for getting warped boards straight. By the time the sun dipped low, the porch stood solid and true. The veteran ran his hand along the railing, eyes shining. "Didn't think I'd see it fixed before winter," he said quietly. Barrett felt a warmth in his chest, the same feeling he'd had after fixing Red's ramp. It wasn't about thanks. It was about knowing you'd left something better than you found it. That night, back home, Barrett told Sophie about the porch project. She listened intently, her eyes wide. "So now you're doing for others what you did for Red?" she asked. Barrett nodded. "That's the idea." Sophie thought for a moment. "Then we should keep looking for people who need help. Like a game, but for real life." Barrett smiled at her choice of words. "Exactly, kiddo. Except in this game, the prize is making sure no one gets left behind." She grinned, clearly picturing herself as part of it. Barrett realized she was already learning the same lesson he had, that kindness, once set in motion, tends to grow. It was more than just helping with tools. It was helping people stand a little taller, roll a little smoother, or breathe a little easier. And that was worth every hour he could give. A few days later, Barrett ran into Hawk at the hardware store. Hawk was loading lumber into the back of his truck. "We're patching up a roof for a family in the next county," he said. "You and Sophie should come by. We could use an extra set of hands." Barrett hesitated. Roofing wasn't exactly safe for an 8-year-old. Hawk grinned. "Don't worry. We've got jobs on the ground too. She can help sort nails or hand up shingles." The following Saturday, Sophie was right there, sorting screws with the precision of a professional. The riders treated her like one of their own, teaching her small tasks, praising her work. By the end of the day, the roof was tight against the weather, and Sophie had a new nickname, Little Builder. Barrett couldn't help but think this was the kind of family you couldn't buy, but could only earn. As fall deepened, Barrett found himself spending more weekends with the riders. Sometimes it was small repairs, sometimes hauling firewood for someone who couldn't. Each job ended the same way, with laughter, strong coffee, and the quiet satisfaction of a task done right. Sophie had grown comfortable among them, always quick with a smile or question. One evening, Red pulled Barrett aside. "You know, you're part of this now," he said. Barrett glanced at the row of bikes lined up along the road. "Feels that way," he admitted. Red nodded. "It's not just about tools and ramps. It's about showing up for each other, for anyone who needs it. That's the only rule that matters." Barrett thought back to that first day, just fixing a ramp without a second thought. He hadn't known it then, but that single choice had opened the door to a life richer than he'd imagined. One rainy evening, Barrett was heading home from work when he spotted a car pulled halfway into a ditch. The driver, a young man barely 20, was trying to push it free alone. Barrett pulled over, stepping into the mud. "Need a hand?" The kid looked embarrassed. Yeah, my phone's dead. I was headed to see my mom in the hospital." Barrett hooked a tow strap from his truck to the car and, with some careful maneuvering, pulled it back onto the road. When the kid reached for his wallet, Barrett waved him off. "Don't worry about it." As Barrett climbed back into his truck, the kid called out, "Why'd you help me?" Barrett smiled. "Because someone once helped me." Driving away, he realized that he no longer thought twice about stepping in. It had simply become part of who he was. A few days later, Barrett mentioned the encounter to Red over coffee. Red grinned. "That's the whole point. You don't keep the kindness, you pass it along." Barrett nodded, thinking of how far that idea had carried him since the day he'd fixed the ramp. Sophie, sitting beside him, chimed in. "We should make it our thing, like a team." Red chuckled. "You already are a team, kiddo. A damn good one." That afternoon, Barrett hung a small wooden sign by the door that Sophie had painted. "Help someone today." It wasn't fancy, but it was a reminder, for them, and for anyone who walked through their door. The ramp he'd fixed for Red was still solid, the boards weathered now but strong, just like the friendship it had built. Barrett figured that was the best blueprint for life he'd ever seen. That winter, a storm tore through the county, downing power lines and flooding low roads. The riders mobilized quickly, checking on elderly residents and delivering supplies. Barrett and Sophie joined them, loading the truck with bottled water and blankets. One stop brought them to a farmhouse where an older couple was stranded without heat. Barrett and two riders hauled in firewood while Sophie set up lanterns inside. The couple's gratitude was quiet but deeply felt. Driving back through the slush, Sophie asked, "Do you think they'll help someone else now?" Barrett smiled. "I'd bet on it." The thought warmed him more than the truck's heater. The circle wasn't just holding, it was growing. And somewhere in that cold, gray landscape, Barrett realized he no longer saw himself as an outsider looking in. He was right where he belonged, and so was Sophie. One afternoon in early spring, Red rolled up to Barrett's porch with a small envelope. "From the guys," he said. Inside was a patch, not the Hells Angels colors, but one that read Honorary Brother. Barrett ran his fingers over the stitching. "I'm not sure I deserve this," he said. Red looked him in the eye. "You earned it the day you fixed that ramp. The rest? That's just you proving we were right about you." Barrett pinned the patch on the wall beside Sophie's Help Someone Today sign. It wasn't about status. It was about belonging to something built on loyalty, trust, and showing up. And it all traced back to one small act that had seemed like nothing at the time. On a warm Saturday morning, Barrett and Sophie sat on the porch, coffee and cocoa in hand, watching the street. "Think they'll ride by today?" Sophie asked. Barrett smiled. "Whether we see them or not, they're always out there." She nodded, leaning against him. Barrett thought back to that afternoon with the broken ramp and how it had set everything in motion. Some people measure wealth in dollars or things. Barrett now measured it in the miles traveled to help someone, in the faces of friends who'd become family, and in the quiet knowledge that kindness was the one investment that never ran out. And as long as the road stretched ahead, he knew there'd always be another ramp to fix, another hand to lend, another reason to ride forward. One small repair changed everything. Barrett fixed a ramp, and the road gave him back a brotherhood. If this story inspired you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, so more stories of loyalty, kindness, and unexpected family find their way to your screen.